And welcome to the Midday Show, a late version of the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, and this is my fault. I will take the blame for this. But first, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, I'm good. I was right in the middle of sending a text, and then you sent this up. And this is work related. I'm sending this to one of our writers. So, go through. Okay, good. I'm good. I mean, you're late. I've been sitting here just twiddling my thumbs for hours, just like, where's Jeff? Where's Jeff? But you're a job related too, so we'll forgive you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. This is the quietest you've ever sounded. What's going on?
I've been busy. I've been doing stuff, and then all of a sudden now you interrupt my day. Now you're like, well, let's do the show now. I mean, I was ready. I had my game face on. It's like, see, you don't have this because you were a basketball player. So, well, I guess it's kind of like this is like a rain delay. Like you show up for first pitch and you have to sit through a 2-hour rain delay, and then you got to get yourself re-going. I guess in basketball it happens when you're like in the playoffs or something, and the game before you goes double overtime.
Yeah.
So you have to wait, but while you're watching something really exciting, even though you have no vested interest. So that's different. Watching rainfall, and you're looking at radar, going, "Do you think we're going to get it in?" And then when it stops, how long is it going to take to get the field ready? So that's kind of how I felt today. But now I'm ready.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That was a pretty decent analogy. Do you feel like I've frozen you out?
You frozen me out of what?
Kicker?
Of what? I don't get it. Frozen me out of what?
Like I iced the kicker. Like usually,
I get it.
Like usually you're.
Listen, that does not affect me. I'm like Mr. Miyagi over here with the mind games. That does not. That I will tell you this. It is the greatest part of you not being here is I get to turn the lights on with no guilt, because you like to work in a cave environment. I like to actually work where you can see things, and it is a contrast.
You should see the environment. I'm in a basement. I'm like buckered down. I have like the old wood paneling, and then I have the light just like shining down on me. It's I feel like I'm like in a police interrogation.
I was gonna say you're like an interrogation. You need the one bulb above you. There we go.
What do you got for us today? You know more about the world today than I do, which is rare.
Is that different than any other day?
No, that's pretty rare. What do you got for us?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that kind of influence. There's things that really matter to the real world, and there's things that kind of matter to our world depending on what. One of the ones that we touched on, I think this story came out yesterday because I'd heard it in the news, and actually you had talked to me about it, my mom had talked to me about it, is that Hertz Rent-A-Car ordered like a gajillion Teslas.
Yes.
So they didn't order 100. Didn't they order 1 million or some 100,000?
I think they ordered 100,000. This is funny. Remember when we first started doing this show, this is how we did it. You can tell we're out of practice. We're used to being in the same room because we had it down pat where we talked over each other not very often. And now like it's this dance we've got to relearn again. 100,000 Hertz bought Teslas. Here, the funny thing about this, and I did not know this, Hess is in serious financial trouble. Did you know that?
Who?
Hess.
Like the Hess truck gas company?
Apparently there is like a financial situation there that is kind of, it is surprising that they're spending this amount of money on something when they are in financial struggle right now.
You say Hess or Hertz?
Hertz. Is it? No, I think it's Hertz. I apologize. Hertz.
Yeah. Hess is the gas company that makes the Christmas trucks.
Apparently Hertz is in like financial dire. And so they're, what is their game plan here? We talked about it, like universities across the country right now. One of the ways that they've figured out to stay open is to go into debt, because what government or state is going to close down an institution that has loads of debt on the books that it'll never make back? So I do wonder if there's a financial play here with Hertz spending all this money on 100,000 Teslas when financially they are struggling right now.
Maybe they're they figure Tesla's the big car company, and maybe we'll end up being part of Tesla. And the bigwigs at Hertz figure they'll get a little bit of a buyout and they'll be able to go off and play golf for the rest of their lives.
It's not a horrible idea. I've never been one in like the rental car space. But I will say this, like I would ask for a Tesla if I was renting a car.
Yeah, I mean, once they become common, once people ride in them and realize how, like, my first question is when you pull in to charge the battery, how long does it take? Because I know how long it takes me to fill up my car. It takes 2 minutes, whatever it is a quick process. But I also know how long it takes to recharge my phone battery and it takes kind of all night. So, that's a question. Once your battery's drained, how long will it have to refill? But yeah, once they become common, it'll be interesting. But 100,000 is a big deal. They're not just tipping their toe in the water. They're going full bore.
I wonder how many of them are self-driving too, because that could really change. I mean, one of the biggest hassles of renting a car when you're out of town, out of state, you're somewhere unfamiliar, is this idea of like where to go and how do you get there. And I've had people say it's actually easier sometimes to not get a rental car because it's easier to get an Uber or a taxi or jump into some type of service where someone can actually take you where you need to go because they know where they're going. I wonder how many of these are self-driving and if that plays into it as well.
I know I'm old, and I know I do not get the self-driving car. I just don't. I'll believe it when I see it. If I am 90 years old on my deathbed and have never ridden in a self-driving car, it would not shock me. I just don't see it.
Because I actually heard somebody talk about this, and they talked about it in a really unique way. They said, don't imagine, you can't picture it as separate cars. Because if you try to picture it as separate cars moving around in your world, the idea of letting go of the steering wheel, it's just not a real thing. But the way they described it was like when a train moves, you have, the links are holding the carts together. So basically what they explained to me is like, it's almost like a digital link or a digital hatch that's pulling the cars along the road in unison together. They just have their own separate carts that are kind of, so I thought that was a very clever way to kind of try to like, if you're older or if you're having a hard time kind of like letting go of the steering wheel, letting go of the wheel, as they say, that is one way to kind of picture this. It's almost like a digital hatch kind of pulling you along. It's not because the cars are connected. It's just digitally. You just can't physically see.
But they're not all like the car. When the car in front of you is a real car, and they have a real driver, then they're not connected.
They're not what?
Then they're not connected.
Yeah, I mean, in that way, it's more dangerous, wouldn't you think?
If one person's driving and one person's not driving.
I see. I get what you're saying. You're saying that idea only makes sense to you in a bubble where every car is.
Correct.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think it's certainly going to be something that's going to be hard for people to let go of. Personally, I don't think I'm going to struggle with it very much.
Well, and just to be clear, we're not saying these 100,000 cars are self-driving. They just ordered 100,000 Teslas. So, none of them could be self-driving for all we know. But anyway, I thought that story was kind of a big, as we talk about how the world is changing so much, we talk about crypto a lot. And, and now we get to we've mentioned Tesla a lot, obviously. And this is just one of them. So that was one big story of the day. Another big story is that James Franklin has apparently hired a new agent. Okay. Now, the immediate thought to anybody who's big enough to have an agent, and he just signed like a 6-year extension in 2020. His contract is nowhere near up. So if you have 4 years or 3 or 4 or 5 years remaining on your present contract, why would you hire a new agent if you weren't at least entertaining the possibility of going somewhere else?
This might be super naive. Is there a way to believe that the old agent had done their job?
But then, why would you hire a new one?
Well, if you're James Franklin, you still need an agent, a publicist. You still need somebody that's like looking out for you, looking for the next best thing, looking out for your interests, whatever that deal may be or where it is. So I know where you're going with this, and I get the sentiment that I think you're about to bring. I would just say though that like if the old agent has done their job, or he feels as if the old agent has maximized his capabilities, there are reasons people switch agents, not for the reason you're about to say, but in this case, I think I tend to lean where you're going.
I mean, they were a couple weeks ago, they were on top of the world, and it looked like they had to beat Ohio State on the road to get to a national champ, to get to the tournament. Now, Clifford gets hurt. Unfortunately, Clifford got hurt. They lose to Iowa. Now they drop one at home to Illinois that they were like a 3-touchdown favorite. Now they're going to go to Ohio State and get smoked. And then they've got later on coming up, they've got Michigan at home and Michigan State on the road. And both of those are undefeated. They're both good teams. So they could end up with 5 losses. So in his world of, the other names that were bandied around, one of them was Mike Tomlin. And Mike Tomlin's response was great. He said, never say never, but never. And he said, there's not a booster that can write a big enough check to get, because he's basically like, I got one of the greatest jobs in this profession in the world.
Right.
Why would I go to USC? And then he ended it with, there's not a booster that can write a big enough check. So anyway, so Pennsylvania's all over this USC rumor. But there have been other names bandied about. The guy from Cincinnati's name is in there, and he is obviously going to be a big name anywhere. And but it just seems curious. It's one thing when you get rumors. It's another thing when you make a move like this. And I'm not saying he's going. I'm not saying. But here's the other aspect. And I know I'm not a Penn State guy. For people who grew up that Penn State is Happy Valley and it's heaven on earth and all that stuff. If you're James Franklin and he's 49 years old, which I didn't know that. I thought he was older than that. He's 49 years old. Why don't you look at your options? Like, this is his profession. He's been at Penn State 8 years. If he can go to Southern California and have a chance to rebuild, they've struggled at USC for a while, and it's still Southern California. It's a pretty decent job, and why not try his hand there? Because again, he's been at Penn State 8 years, and I don't want to say he's done what he's done, but I don't know. The West Coast, Ohio State makes winning where Penn State is very, very hard. Right now, the Pac-12 is wide open. Winning in California and on the West Coast is going to be much easier to do than beating Ohio State.
I agree with you that he should be looking at his options. In a weird way, he's almost in his prime with coaching. Like, he's old enough to have the experience, but young enough that people don't view him as like he's lost touch. Or
he's not. This isn't his last stop necessarily. His shelf life is not running out.
Yes, so I agree with you on that end. Like, if he was ever going to explore options, this is a very real time to do so. I 100% agree with that. USC is not a good job. It's not. And so unless you want to live in California, I get it. If you are a football coach that wants to live in California, great. Go take the USC job, try to rebuild it. Awesome. But if you are happy or you have no issue living in the state of Pennsylvania, the state of Iowa, Ohio, like whatever Midwest, East Coast state you're living in, if you're happy there, the USC job is not a better job than the one that you are at, especially if you are James Franklin. So,
if you're happy, like if Luke Fickle's happy at Cincinnati, then he's happy. And USC's a good job.
It's not what people think it is. It's not. You and I, we've already had this argument. It's not a top 10 job. It's not a top 20 job. It's just not.
Stop it.
It's not.
Top 20?
It's not.
It is.
There's 20 college football jobs that are better right now than USC.
You are out of your mind.
It's the truth.
No, you're not.
Listen, and here's the other thing too. Was USC good because they're USC, or was USC good because they bent the rules like other universities across the country? And we've seen other universities across the country fall off when they could no longer bend the rules.
USC has it is a storied tradition, old, deep money.
Yes.
It's the best.
But the money's leveled out now.
Oregon and USC are the two best jobs in the Pac-12, without a doubt.
I I will not argue that case. I think if you're a Pac-12 coach, there's a lot of benefits, one of them being geography. Like, I don't disagree with that. I'm not sitting here saying that, like, I'm snubbing my nose at the USC job. What I am snubbing is this idea. People think that, like, the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach and the Penn State head coach, and why wouldn't they leave Pennsylvania, and why wouldn't they go to USC? And I'm just saying, like, I vehemently disagree with that. Like, the USC job is not so great that everybody's just packing their bags and praying they get to be a Trojan. It's just, that's not the world we live in anymore. It's not real.
Well, it doesn't mean it's not that's like saying Indiana basketball is not a top 20 job.
It's not. Well, we've had that argument. It's not.
It certainly is. It certainly
is not. You're living in like 1992. None
Dude,
of those jobs are as good as they were.
If we went through all the conferences, which we won't because that'll bore all the non-sports fans, there are 5 power conferences. One of them is the Pac-12, and we just agreed that it's one of the 2 best jobs in the Pac-12. I would agree that Oregon's better because of Nike.
You could sell me that Stanford's a better job because
there's no way. There is
just because of the academic institution and kind of everything behind it and the funding. You could make the argument to me that Stanford is a better job than USC now.
And you would be wrong with your argument.
No,
that's okay. You're allowed to make as an American.
If you look at the last 10 years, I'm not wrong. Stanford is a better job now. The next thing you're going to tell me is that SMU is a great job. Like, stop.
No,
like, it's
SMU's not even close.
86. Like, move on.
No, it's not. SMU's not even close. But, that's like Texas hasn't been good for a while. Texas is still a great job. Texas is a top 10 job.
No,
they haven't been good. What? No, they haven't been good for a while. It's the second best job in the Pac-12.
Top 10 job. There can only be 10 jobs in the top 10. So USC and Texas cannot be included.
Sure they can. There's 8 others.
Trust me, there's 10 better than USC and Texas, without a doubt.
Now, I don't want to turn this into a sports talk show because we could do that. Is Michigan a better job than USC?
Right now, yeah, probably.
Disagree. Michigan hasn't won anything
ever. Would Harbaugh leave Michigan for USC?
Harbaugh's an alum.
Doesn't matter.
It's different. It's different. He's an alumni.
Okay, Franklin's a native of Pennsylvania.
But he didn't. He's not a Penn State guy. He didn't go to Penn State.
Your
alma mater is your alma mater. It's different.
Just because he couldn't play at Penn State doesn't mean he wasn't a Penn State fan. Franklin has said on numerous occasions that Penn State was the dream job.
And I get that, but it doesn't mean there's a difference between being an alum. Scott Frost is at Nebraska because he played at Nebraska. It's not because
the difference is you just weren't good enough to play there. It doesn't mean you didn't love the team any more or less.
Well, yeah, and I get
there are hundreds.
Now you've totally skewed the argument. Now I will make you a list of the top 10 jobs, and you will look at it and say, "Oh my gosh, I guess USC's good." There's no job in the ACC better than other than Clemson.
There are hundreds of kids playing in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, which is Division II, that probably Penn State is their favorite team. They just weren't good enough to play at Penn State.
Congratulations.
So it doesn't make them any less of a fan just because they weren't good enough to play there.
But it does. Fan and alum are different.
No, it's not. It just means you were good enough to play there. Doesn't mean you don't want them to succeed any more or less.
It doesn't mean you have correct. But Harbaugh is Harbaugh's an alum at Michigan. That's why the Michigan job is the best job. I understand. So when you say would Harbaugh leave for USC? No, he wouldn't leave for USC.
Right. Same way Franklin wouldn't leave either.
See, at the end of the day, I don't know if he gets offered. If I'm USC, is he number 1 on my list or is he just on the list?
I can't believe that USC just gets to make up lists that have like some of the best coaches in the country as if they just want to pack up their stuff and go there. I don't understand this argument.
You're right. Oklahoma State's a better job than USC.
I just don't
Iowa's
understand
a better job. You're wrong.
It would be like, listen, it would be like you and I. It'd be like if we were trying to hire a producer for this show and we just started the list at like the producer for The Daily Show, the producer for 60 Minutes, because why would they leave? Like it just doesn't make sense.
If you left North Central Pennsylvania and you ask someone in the state of Alabama who they know a little bit about college football,
Okay.
Is USC and Penn State, which is Penn State a better job than USC? I don't think you're going to get over. I think they would say they're both good, but they're not Alabama.
Well, yeah, nothing's Alabama.
But they're not going to say, oh, my God, Penn State's so much better. You think it because we're here. But the rest of the country, if you ask somebody in Oregon which job's better, they're going to say USC's better by a mile.
No, I think this whole argument that started, I think in the last 10 years, Penn State's a better job, personally. I also think if our coach was from Houston, then I'd be sitting here like, yeah, he's probably out. Like, he's probably not sticking around. Like, a Pennsylvania native, he has said several times this is his dream job. Now, the only thing that I've been told, his daughter suffers from, do you remember what she suffers from?
No.
His daughter has a condition that she receives several treatments for. It's pretty serious. So if they could find a university that specialized in that, if they had the opportunity to go somewhere where she could get better treatment or the best treatment, something along those lines, I 100% get it. If we're just talking about football, he's not going. If it's a football question, he is not leaving. Now, if he wants to hang out on the beach, he'll probably go. If he wants better treatment for his daughter and they have it there, he'll probably go. But if it's just football, he is not going. He's not.
So let me
leaving.
ask you this. If you sat down with Kirk Herbstreit and Reese Davis and Desmond Howard and said, is Penn State a better job than USC? You think they would all just unequivocally say yes?
Like, if you have to pick, right? Like, you have to say yes or no. I think they say yes.
I think you're wrong.
In the year 2021, you can't say no. Like, you can't say USC is a better job in 2021. It's not.
Why?
Why is USC a better job?
Why can't you say it is?
No. For football, why is USC right now, today in 2021, a better job? Because I understand, again, I get the West Coast stuff. I get the warm weather. I get like the celebrity or like the endorsement side. I understand those aspects.
All those in, okay, let's just, all those are in USC's favor.
If you're just talking about football, it is not a better job. It isn't.
Because they can win a conference and not have to beat Ohio State.
Yeah,
and as good as Penn State has been, in the last 10 years, what they have proven is they're not as good as Ohio State.
So you just pack up and leave.
It's easier. I mean, if you're just looking at rankings, then Cincinnati's one of the best two jobs in America, which is insane. Then Pitt is a better job than Penn State right now in 2021, which is also insane. Like, there's a history, there's a rebirth. They have 15,000 Heisman Trophy winners at USC. That has to count for Penn State's had one.
Because they were getting paid.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm saying is now, like, it's a level playing field. Like, that running back can get that amount of money anywhere he goes. So what? Like, why is USC so great?
Because their alumni has more money because they have more history. Like, is UCLA a better basketball job than USC?
Is UCLA?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
Because they just went to the Final Four.
Because they have more history.
No, they've been way better than USC over the last decade. It's not even close.
Well, because they have a coach from Cincinnati. So maybe Luke Fickell will follow. He'll go to Southern California with it.
I mean, the logic you're using then is like, why would you ever leave Boise State? Like, why would you ever leave Cincinnati? Like, the logic you're using is just like, what's my easiest path to success? And if that's the case, go to UCF, go to Cincinnati, go to Boise State, go to one of these mid-major schools and just go 12-0 every year if you're such a great coach and just stay.
That's what Mark Few did. Because it's your
path of least resistance.
That's what Mark Few did.
Yeah, but that's basketball. Football's different.
But the coach left Boise.
Right.
He went to Washington.
He shouldn't have.
What?
You're saying he shouldn't have left Boise.
No, I'm saying he should have for a top 10 job. The USC is a top 10 job.
Your best argument for USC being a better job than Penn State is that USC has a path of least resistance to get to the national title. And if that's how you're gauging whether or not one job's better than another, then we're just going to disagree.
That's not my only. USC has a much more storied history.
Yes,
Much.
But 18-year-olds don't care.
But the old people with the money do.
Okay, but the 18-year-olds don't, and that's who wins football games.
Well, where do you think there's more professional football players coming from, Pennsylvania or California?
It doesn't matter because those kids from California can go wherever they want.
But they're staying in California.
No, they're not.
Sure they would.
No, they're not. They're
a lot of them are.
Alabama and Florida, and they're all over the place.
So you don't think USC's roster is littered with kids from California?
Listen, if you go through the top 10 recruits from California, I bet you more than half of them do not go to a school in California.
But how about the top 200 recruits?
What about them?
If you made a team of recruits number 101 to 200 from California, and they played a team with recruits number 101 to 200 from Pennsylvania, they would win 3,000 to nothing.
Yeah, well, the good thing for these top programs is they're not recruiting player number 167 from Pennsylvania.
Sure they are.
No, that kid's at Shippensburg.
Oh, in California they are. That kid's getting a ride somewhere.
Yeah, and guess where he's going? Like San Jose State. USC isn't even looking at that kid.
Let me tell you, they have a better tradition. They have an easier path to the national championship right now. They have better weather. They have all these perks of being in LA. There are lots of things, and he's going to make more money there than he would here because they have all kinds of money in California, and they're desperate. So add those things up. USC is a better job.
That's the college football program I want to coach for, the one that's desperate. What else do you got?
Of course. They're desperate. That's all I got.
Yeah. Sign me up.
You're just wrong. It's okay. You're allowed to be. You're a basketball guy. You don't understand these things. We had something else. What else did I want to talk about?
We had something else.
You've got me all flustered now.
I got y'all upset because you're starting to realize that it's not that great of a job.
No, I'm starting to realize that I don't know. I won't say anything insulting, but you're wrong. The World Series starts tonight, but that wasn't it. Something happened in the world. We just talked about it before we went on the air. What was it?
Something happened in the world. We talked about unrealized gains yesterday, and then we didn't talk about it on the show. We talked about the Senate bill, but I kind of want to read a little bit more about that. There's a bill coming up in the Pennsylvania Senate about guns that I think you and I should dive into, but I want to read about it. I want to make sure I understand the entire bill.
Is that the one that's they're trying to lower the age of?
They're trying to lower the age for concealed carry. And then they're also trying to I don't know if they're necessarily getting rid of the permits or if they're making it easier to get a permit to conceal carry a weapon. So I want to read through that bill, and I just want to make sure I have a whole grasp on it before giving opinions on it. But it's kind of, we can kind of talk about this. There's so many other things going on. Something like that almost gets swept under the rug now. Because to me, like, that's when you talk about bills and changing laws and all the things, to me, like, that's not a small bill. Like that, to the idea that 18-year-olds could conceal carry across the state of Pennsylvania, there's a lot of strong opinions about that. And it's like I said, with all the election stuff, everything else going on with just supply chain issues and COVID restrictions and mandates and everything else, this bill's kind of like getting pushed through, and I don't even know if people know about it.
Well, it's one of the things, and we've talked about this a lot, because of social media, because of cable television, because I remember when I was a little kid and the channels went 2 to 13, and then you got cable and you got, 100 channels, and we were like, whoa, and now with the internet, now that you've got 1 million channels and places to get information, there's so much noise. It's kind of hard to hear any of the conversations. And that's, as society moves forward, people are going to have to get better at picking out, like, where can I go for real information that I believe, as opposed to, but so many people don't want factual information. They want information that supports their argument, and they would rather be right. They would rather think they're right than be informed. But so that's where we're going.
So because you touched on a lot of stuff there, I've been diving in even deeper into the Facebook stuff because I think whatever comes from this, whether it's regulation or the fines or whatever they end up doing with Facebook, I think it's really going to change the way social media is developed and kind of how we view it. But one of the things that you brought up there was there's such this idea, they're calling it group polarization. So there's this idea of, we thought social media was this great thing, like it's going to connect us and it's going to bring us together. But the way social media is marketed and the way they're doing this, you're not actually reaching out to people you don't know. You're not reaching out to people you're out of touch with. What you're actually doing is it's grouping you into these clusters that have no varying opinions. And so what you just hinted at, like, there's this idea of how often do you find the right information, but even more so, like, how often are you finding information that disagrees with you or challenges your thinking or makes you, I listen to 2 podcasts almost daily. One is called Pod Save America, which is the most like liberal democratic podcast you could possibly listen to. And I listen to Rogan almost every single day, which Rogan is a conservative and very like, so I almost go out of my way to try to hear the opposite sides of things and varying opinions and things I disagree with and things I do agree with. I have found enjoyment almost listening to things that challenge me or that I disagree with the majority of the time. But most people don't get that in their daily life.
Well, but in the way people are wired, there are some people who are just wired to be right. You are wired with curiosity. So that's why you listen to multiple things, because you're curious about the world and to learn stuff and to be, I think curiosity is the right word. So I'll keep coming back to it. Most people aren't curious. That most people just want to be right. And it's simple that this is what I believe. And it's easier for me to continue to believe that and defend that argument than it is for me to re-examine, well, maybe my argument isn't as good as I thought, or maybe I should hear this other point, or maybe maybe it's not as black and white as I thought. And that's the other thing. It's in the world of a friend of mine who's a pastor. He used to talk about how his dad was, our old school, our dads are all that. And he's like, my dad lived in a very black and white world. There's right and wrong. And he said, in my world, I've realized, it's the first time I ever heard the cliche when he said, there's a million shades of gray. And then the book 50 Shades of Grey comes out and it totally changes but there's many people that just live in that black and white. This is right and this is wrong. And they don't find any of the gray area in between, when really life is almost all about the gray area in between.
So because that gray area, this is along with that group polarization that I was just listening about and kind of diving into. I think the other word, you kept using the word like curious. I think the word that doesn't get passed around enough when you're talking about social media is it almost allows you to be dismissive. So what I mean by that is, like, when you're sliding through your Facebook feed or your TikTok or your Instagram, whatever it is, if you don't like something, guess what you can do?
Right.
You just swipe it away. You just swipe it left, or you just move up the feed, and so what happens is, like, the moment you see something you disagree with, or it's not something you would typically watch or listen to, it's dismissive culture where it's just like, well, I don't like, get that out. Like, I don't need to hear that, or I don't want to listen to that. And so, yeah, that dismissiveness, the word that I kept coming back to, the more I dive into this, that I wish they would talk about, is that dismissive nature of social media. Because, like, even though I'm not that old yet, I remember, like, if you turned on the TV and there were X amount of channels, and, like, sometimes you had to watch stuff you didn't want to watch because there was just nothing else on. Yeah, like, you had to watch a boring movie, or you had to watch the show before the show you wanted, and so we've just become this thing of dismissiveness where it's like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not. And so most people relate that to, like, not responsiveness, but it's the idea that kids don't have an attention span, right?
Right.
But to me, it's not even attention span, because if they like it, oh my God, it's like tunnel vision. If they like it, they can sit there for hours if it's what they're looking for, what they want. I would argue, forget attention span. Dismissiveness is the number one thing.
So what you are saying, to paraphrase what you're saying, is as a society now, we're just used to swiping left.
I think anything we dislike
That was
or
a joke.
anything that
I was going for my social
Tinder
media
joke.
Tinder reference. And how many
Yeah.
times have you swiped left in your life?
Yeah, we need more people that swipe right.
Do we?
You don't think so? I think we need.
I've never swiped left or right, so I don't know. But you're experienced in this.
The dating app aspect of it is, yeah, I mean, you dive into that too. Like, it's dismissive. Like, you don't even get to know the person and you're swiping left on it. So, yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing, there's a dismissive aspect that no one talks about.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right about that. I think you're wrong about USC. So you've gone 1 for 2. If you're in the baseball game tonight and you're 1 for 2, that's great. If you're at the foul line and you're 1 for 2, that's underachieving. So, whatever.
I will tell you this. I am such a great boyfriend. I looked up the World Series schedule, and I had been telling you for weeks, like, I was going to Atlanta. Like, if they made it, like, I was going to go. And
hold on. Let me just jump in. Aaron texted me the other night after the Braves won. He said, "Do you think Jeff's going to Atlanta?" And I said, "Not a chance." And he said, "Do you want to bet lunch on it?" And I said, "That's fine with me because he ain't going." And guess who's not going?
Well, anyway, they play Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
In Atlanta. Yes.
In Atlanta. And I don't really want to go to Texas. Like, I would have rather gone down the coast, maybe saw a buddy in North Carolina, then go to Atlanta for a game. But because it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, my girlfriend had all these plans this Halloween weekend. We had sorted it all out. So being the good boyfriend that I am, I said, you know what? Like, you had this planned out. We won't do it. I truly believe if they were playing in Atlanta Tuesday, Wednesday, I would be there right now. Truly, truly.
I'm not telling you how to live your life. If you went to Texas while you were there, you could get in a helicopter and shoot wild boars.
It's true. There's something
you can't do that in Atlanta.
Am I wrong? This is what's so weird about it. To me, driving to Atlanta makes perfect sense. Like, I have no issue spending like 16 hours driving to Atlanta. But for whatever reason, I can't wrap my head around driving to Texas.
Because it's further.
I mean, yeah, but how, like, but you get my point.
It's a day, isn't it? I've had truck drivers tell me, isn't it something like 22 hours, 24 hours, something of travel time?
Sure. So for, like, it's just the irony that, like, I'm so willing to do one to see the same thing, but I'm not willing to do the other.
I mean, doesn't I-81 go down and then bend like through Tennessee? Whoops, I'm bending the wrong way if we're going. Doesn't it go like I think doesn't 81 go like all the way to Nashville and Memphis? And
yeah, possible. I don't know for sure.
I don't know. But anyway, yeah, is Atlanta 16 hours? I didn't think it was that far.
Like, even just getting to the bottom of like North Carolina can take 9 to 10 hours. Okay. So I would guess Atlanta, Georgia, you're looking at like a 15-hour. I mean, if you don't hit traffic, I mean, the catch for everything's traffic.
I guess.
So
I don't
know. Plus we have supply chain issues right now. Actually, it might be quicker since where President Biden said we're driving at night now.
But what if you get there and the gas stations are empty because we couldn't get any gas? So then you need an electric car.
I don't know. But now that all the truck drivers are supposed to be driving at night, the roads should be clear.
Unless you go at night. then you're screwed.
I think we've, out of all the conversations we've had about like Bush and Obama and Trump and Biden, that is the one, like, I don't understand more. Like, everyone loves to make fun of presidents. They love to like call this out and call that out. That is one that, like, I find for whatever reason, and I'm like one of the only people, I still find it hilarious that we had a president walk out and the solution to supply chain was to just have the truck drivers drive at night. That, like, to me, that is still, I'm still wrapping my head around that.
It's because it's so brilliant you can't comprehend it. That must be.
Because this is, again, like, if any of the three, I mean, if Trump, Obama, or Bush said that, like, can you imagine if Bush would have said that? I mean, people would have been just mocking the lack of intelligence, and they would have been all over it. And like for some reason, like no, I guess there's just so many other things going on that maybe they just didn't pick up on it.
I think you're right. We've gotten to a point where, yeah, we're just so unfazed now. But I was just thinking about this the other day when you're talking about Biden. So imagine when Trump won, and obviously even the day of the election, people thought Hillary was going to win. At least it seemed, all the polls and all that stuff. So Trump's kind of an upset, a wild card, and he was certainly a different kind of president. So if after he wins, if you're like, well, he's only going to win one term. If you could have gone back to 2016, 2017, and the future could have come to you, Marty McFly would have come back and said Trump's going to lose in 2020. And you're like, okay, who's he lose to? And you'd have said Joe Biden. You'd have said, there's no way he's losing to Joe Biden in 2020. There's no way. So, yeah. I mean, there are still the times that I wake up and when I like, and this is for the last however many years, I was shocked that America had come far enough to elect a black president. I was surprised because I know, and I don't know, yeah. When you were a kid, when I was a kid, we always had the debate when we were in elementary school, when we were in middle school, which will happen first, a black president or a female president. And those were the debates because it was all just old white men. And so then I was surprised that we elected a black president. Then I was surprised that we elected Trump because he was a non-politician at all. He was a reality show. He was a businessman. He didn't fit the mold at all. And now I'm shocked. And I think out of all three, I'm most shocked that we elected Biden. I think he is. And even though he was Obama, not only is black, he was too young, that there's no way he could win. And then he won. And Trump had nothing to do with it. There's no way he could win. And then he won. Biden's the guy who's been doing this his whole life. And I think he's the most shocking to me of all.
I would, to go along with your point, I'd even go one further back because I was much like I was just dipping my toe into voting and politics and everything else because of my age. But I can remember like reading and going into it. And I was surprised that Bush won re-election because that was not like a foregone conclusion.
Right.
So, I mean, you could go back, all the way to 2004 and really say like, there's not one election we've had since 2004 where if you did the Marty McFly, somebody would be like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
Not one.
I'm with you. I am with you. And here we are in 2021 that you're like, now we're at a point, who's running for the Democrats? I still say there's no way Biden can run again because he's too old. People disagree with me on that. And
it's going to be what's been, I don't want to say awkward. The last elections, like we just talked about, there was a sense of leading up to it. You still felt like there was I don't want to say a system. There was a normalcy, I guess, like leading up to it. Really. Yeah. And this is the first time we're like 3 years out. You're just like, well, this person can't possibly run and this person can't and guess what? Like I think they're all going to run. Like we just think you sat here, people sat there and they're like, well, Trump can't possibly run again. He is going to like, and you're like you said, like, I don't think Biden, and like, I think Biden's going to run. Like, I think the people that we're sitting here and kind of like, they can't possibly, I think they're gonna, I think we're in for it.
Just think of all the people who were like these political pundit experts back in like the late 70s and then through the Reagan years, who was just boring. It's like, oh, Reagan, how much did he win by? Oh, he's again, how much did he win by? What was it? And now there's so much mystery where back then there was just, and I was too young to remember when Carter ran. I know Carter did not end up having a good presidency, but coming off the Nixon stuff, I assume Carter was a slam dunk in 76. So you went from slam dunk, slam dunk, slam dunk. And then the Bush, I don't even know if we might have almost 2 decades of just like layups. And now you get into this and it is a fog.
Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy. Real quick before we go, let's go through some of these. Gary said, I would not have said that. Biden rode Obama's coattails and Obama was an extremely popular president.
But he had that gap. He disappeared. And that was, and I just thought he became too old. Like Bush Sr. clearly ran Reagan's coattails, but because Biden stepped away, and I know there's personal reasons and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's why I thought.
Yeah. Joe says sometimes you had to watch the Mets on Channel 9 because the Yankees on Channel 11 had an off day. We were talking about being forced to watch things you don't want to watch.
Hold on. Can I tell a story when Mike was pitching and they were on the Yes Network all the time? And the Yes Network, for people who don't know, is the Yankees. It's owned by the Yankees. And they have other stuff, like they had the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know if they still do, but they had other deals with other stuff, but they were owned and made by the Yankees. So on off days in the summer, there aren't that many baseball off days. They would play a cool, like an instant classic game or something from a couple years ago. So one day my mom has one on, and she's like, I'm walking through the house and I'm doing whatever, and my mom is invested in this game. And I said, Mom, this game's from like 3 years ago. And she looks at me, she goes, I didn't think he was on the Yankees anymore. I wondered what was going on. I was like, yeah, they don't play today. This is old. So anyway, watching the Mets on Channel 9, that's funny.
And then Lisa said Tesla rolled back full self-driving beta because of some issues. I'd read about that. However, what they didn't, they're still putting all of the system into place, because I actually looked this up, Lisa. So even though, yes, they did roll it back and they are looking into it, that has not stopped them from the Teslas they're developing. They still have the full capability of self-driving. So that's why it'll be interesting. These 100,000, this fleet that's essentially going out to Hertz, it'll be interesting. They're going to have that in it. There's no way Tesla's making 100,000 cars and they're not having that system put in place ahead of time.
And let's be honest, it's not just Tesla's cars. We all have some issues.
Yes, we do. All right. We pulled that together. We got it done.
Well done.
Thanks for your patience.
Listen, I would trade the impatience for light every day. Oh, this is glorious. Glorious.
We just got to take them out from over top of my desk and we're good.
That's fine with me. Well, I mean, if we need a divider, if we need something.
Divider?
Like, I sit in a cage.
Can I show you? This is everything from the table. Obviously, you see the wood paneling. Then we have like the wooden table, right? And then up above, this is like the chandelier.
Nice.
That's like burning into my eyes. I was waiting for you to ask me where I was on like the night of October 11th at like 8 p.m.
You know what that room looks like? College kid poker night in my family basement.
That is perfect. All I need is a picture of some dogs playing poker and hats.
That's all you need. That's all you need. The guy that sits there that sees how many hours he can stay in his chair without going to the bathroom.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
Tomorrow, we don't think Jeff has a meeting.
Nope.
So we will be here on time. And Thursday, I have a meeting, but it's way in the morning. And I should be fine.
All right. We'll make it work. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thanks for watching the Midday Show.
We'll see you tomorrow.